Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tristen Law Show. I am Tristen Law. I'm the host. I am here and I'm back in front of the camera. It's a Tuesday. I was thinking that Tuesdays would more likely be my stream day where we can sit here and just talk about pro wrestling live or different topics in pro wrestling live, or where we can get some guests on. Still working through a couple things before we get that done. You know, I am sort of a perfectionist. I like things just right if I'm going to be able to do it. And in order for me to get things just right, I have to do a little bit more testing and stressing of the system, because the last thing I would want is to get on a stream and it not work. Because I'm only going to be doing live. 99% of the time I'm doing live because it's a lot easier. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot more stressful. I hate doing live. People say, why do you hate doing live? I said, because it's live. Why do you like doing live? Because it's live. So, yep, that's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to do a quick shout out to one of my fellow YouTube partners, to one of my homeboys, Heel Vega. He's doing some cool things with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Gave me a little shout out on his last video. So go ahead and check him out. Heel Vega, all one words. He's doing some things over there with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So if that's your thing, go over there and check him out. Really big wrestling fan. This is as big as I am. And we're going to come on one day and talk to you about wrestling. But today we're going to be talking about heels versus faces, good guys versus bad guys. We're going to be talking about the dynamic between the two and how it relates to pro wrestling and storytelling. Okay, I have been a pro wrestler for maybe, I don't know, what year is this? I started training in 2007. And I'm right now, I'm semi-retired. I'm using semi-retired because once I get the time, I'm going to go back into the ring. But I am semi-retired, so I'm going to be utilizing my previous experiences as a pro wrestler and my experiences as a fan to detail this episode with you today. However, my podcast episodes are always interactive, so I want you to interact. You could definitely send a message here in the chat. If you send a message here in the YouTube chat while it's live, I will respond to you live while we're going on. Or if you're watching this on demand because you couldn't sit here at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday, I will respond to you later on throughout the day, or whenever it is that you respond. Even if you see this video in 5 years, I'm going to respond to you in 5 years. You can also call as well too. Call. When I say call, I don't really trust you to call because, you know, some of y'all like to cuss. So, you know, you can definitely send a text message to 973-826-0101. You can even send a voicemail. If you leave a voicemail, I'll play the voicemail live here while the show is going on, and we can respond to it and interact just like that. But send a text 973-826-0101. You can send a voicemail to 973-826-0101, or you can respond here on the Facebook, on the YouTube chat. So the dynamic in pro wrestling between heels and faces is that it gives everybody something to believe in. When you're looking at any movie or any kind of story, you need to believe in the characters. If you don't believe in the characters, whether they be good or whether they be bad, you're really not going to jive with them at all. You're not going to really care too much or get invested in the story. There's not one story that I've ever read or any movie that I've ever watched or TV show that I ever watched where I go, man, the characters suck, but you know what? The stories are great. No, I would not stick around that long if I can't emotionally invest into the characters. It makes it easier for people to believe in the protagonist, the good guy, the heel, the hero of the story when they face some kind of adversity. Adversity comes in different ways. Adversity comes whether it is internal, whether it's something that you're dealing with inside of yourself, or whether it's external, like the weather, or trying to cross the street, you know, because there's cars coming and, you know, there's lava in the middle, or this is another adversary that's just a person. You know, it's a person that stands inside of your way of what you're looking to get with. When I first started pro wrestling, I always wanted to be a babyface, the good guy, the face. Right, I want to be the babyface because I grew up watching people like Shawn Michaels and and Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan getting cheered. And I'm like, oh, that'd be so great if I can go and get cheered just like The Rock. You know, I want to get cheered just like The Rock. But when I got into pro wrestling, I realized that it was much easier for me to be the heel. I was taught a very old school way, and the old school way is that the heel is the person that pretty much, you know, dictates the match, pretty much has the match going along down the river. And for me, I could never remember 100 moves that somebody would give me, plus then remember my moves. All I would have to remember is what I'm going to do in the beginning, then I'm going to cut you off, I'm going to beat you up, you're going to do a little comeback, I'm going to beat you up again, and then we're going to go into the comeback, and then we're going to go into the finish of the match. It was a lot easier for me to remember when I only had to remember what I could just do on the fly. I could just call it in the ring is what we do. A lot of people think that we're in the back and we're talking about what we're going to do. Yeah, it's true, but sometimes you call it. If there's no really time constraints, you can just go in there and just do what you do, you know, and just take your time, and you get to feel the time. But I became a heel in pro wrestling, and I love being a heel. The reason why I love being a heel, they say the greatest heels are the nicest people in real life, and the nicest and the meanest people in real life are the greatest heels on television in pro wrestling. I don't know if you've ever met any other pro wrestler, but hey, let me know, 973-826-0101, or you can just send me a little message in the chat and I'll respond back. But let me know if you believe that is true. Like for me, I think it's true. I've met a lot of people in pro wrestling who I go, oh, wow, you're not a nice person. But on television, they were baby faces that made lots of money inside of their career. So for me, I liked being a heel. I used to always stay away from like meet and greets when it would come to meeting people, because the second I would open my mouth, I never forget, one time I came out for a meet and greet. Doing independent wrestling, you always have the opportunity to go for an intermission. And in that intermission, I was able to meet one of the fans, and I never forget, I opened my mouth and said, hey, how's it going? And his father goes, you see, I told you he was a nice guy. I'm like, yeah, this messed up my whole shtick. Now I got to start over from the beginning and stuff like that. So eventually what I stopped doing was I stopped going out for intermission, right? I stopped going out. And what I would do is if I did happen to come into a fan, I would just give him the cold shoulder and just keep going. However, if I saw somebody that was like special needs or a really young kid who wouldn't really understand what we're really doing here, I would stop. I would take the time. It could be a bunch of people looking to take pictures, right? And what I would do is I would snub all of them. I just keep walking. But if I saw somebody that was really young or somebody that special needs, I would stop and I would take the photo with them and them alone, because they don't understand what I'm doing and I don't want to upset them too much to where they might not be able to sit for the entire show. But anything other than that, I would only give the opportunities to them, and everybody else, they can GFYS. Yeah, GFYS. Yep, that's right. The origins of heel and babyface, the dynamic versus good and evil, it has been around since the beginning of time. Every single story that you can think of has some kind of good and evil. And I'm talking about all the way back to the Bible if you're religious, or if you know any other stories older than that, there's always some kind of good and evil. There's God and the devil, right? There's Batman versus Joker. There is, Jack and the giant in the beanstalk. Was it Jack and the beanstalk? Yeah, Jack and the giant in the beanstalk. There's always some kind of adversary. There's always some kind of good versus evil, right? Imagine if it was good versus good. Like, who would you cheer for? Who would you know who to cheer for? Then you'd have to pick a side. What if there was evil versus evil? You just hate both of them. You're not going to read the book, right? So that's one of the things I always looked at when it came to pro wrestling, when it came to, good guys versus good guys, face versus face or heel versus heel match. Like, who do you really cheer for? One actually has to be more the heel or more the face than the other. Pro wrestling started out in the carnivals, and there was always one character that incites the crowd, the heel, and the other person that rallies the crowd, the babyface, the people that would get the fans behind them. At that time, I don't think they were selling merchandise back in like the 1800s or stuff like that. Hey, come buy like a burlap sack with my name on it. Not really sure how it works. But the evolution over the decades, wrestling broke out of the carnivals and into television sets in people's homes in the 1940s and 1950s. That is what pro wrestling historians refer to as the golden age of pro wrestling. Heels and faces actually made it really easier for storytelling on the television because it was clear cut. You know exactly who you're going to cheer for, and you know exactly who you were not going to cheer for. Heels and babyface eventually transformed into what they are now, into where it's kind of blurred. You really don't know who to cheer for sometimes, so you just choose the one that you like the most. But some classic examples of heel versus faces was Lou Thesz. Lou Thesz was a babyface, and then there was also Gorgeous George, who was a heel, or as they say in Mexico, he was the rudo. Gorgeous George had a flamboyant and arrogant persona, and he was what you would call, actually Nature Boy Ric Flair said that he probably took some of his stuff as well too. Gorgeous George came out with the big hair, and he came out with the perfume, spraying everybody and different stuff like that, where Lou Thesz, he was a persona that was straightforward, and he was a hardworking man. There are wrestlers that you can see with both of those qualities today, from Lou Thesz, where, they were straight, hardworking men, as compared to Gorgeous George, to where they were pompous and they were arrogant. And surprise, pro wrestling is just full of thieves. All you do is you steal somebody else's idea and put your own spin on it. Even today, hundreds of years later, you can still see pro wrestling where people hang their hat on those personas. You got people like Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is the hard worker. He's a straightforward man. And you got somebody like MJF on the other side, who is pompous, and he tells you that he's better than you, and people still cheer for him. I don't get it, but he's supposed to be the heel. What makes a great heel? I think I'd be the great person to tell you that. Definitely what makes a great heel is the ability to draw heat. Heat is where you make the people don't like you. Okay, so one of the things that we say in pro wrestling is like, yo, bro, we got heat. Heat means that we got beef, right? So being a good pro wrestling heel means that you're able to extract heat from the crowd and make them hate you so much that they want to see the face kick your teeth in. Okay, in order to be a good heel too, you have to be relatable enough that people don't like you. Somebody probably dealt with you. You know what? You were the bully in high school, right? You were bullied in high school, and you see that person. You know what? You're the bully in high school, but you're now an adult, but you're in a pro wrestling ring. I don't like you because of that. What I used to do when I was a heel was I'd make you hate me so much, I don't care who came out. It could be the person selling popcorn. If that person came out and stood with me in the ring, you would cheer them because you wanted them to shut me up. You wanted them to beat me up. The babyface, the heel has to be somebody that people can invest in. Like I said in that last example, is that you want to see them in peril. You want to see them in some kind of danger. You want to see them get beat up. Where the babyface has to be able to draw sympathy from the crowd, right? You have to be able to care about the babyface, about the face, about the good guy. And one of the things I always tell people, when you're a babyface, you can't just go out there and just get beat up the whole entire time. Because nobody wants to rally behind a punk. Oh my God, this guy's a punk. He's getting beat up, right? So every now and then you got to fight back, but you got to get sympathy out of the crowd. Sympathy means that you have to let the fans care what is happening to you. They have to care whether you win or lose in order for you to be an effective babyface. The beating has to look believable. If you're a babyface, if you want to be a good babyface, the beating has to look believable. You have to be able to take a good butt whooping. And the heel has to be able to give a good one, or to give the perception that they're giving a good one and taking a good one. It gives the ability for the fans to invest in your character as a babyface because they want you to succeed. The psychology behind these roles and how wrestlers bring them into the life, and when I say psychology, psychology is a term that we use in pro wrestling, not about like your mental and stuff like that, but it's pretty much how does this correlate to the real world? If I'm punching you inside of your face, right? Not inside of your face, but in your face, right? How is it that you're able to, do something? Are you able to jump off the top rope? Right? If I'm taking your arm and I'm tearing your arm off, how are you able to punch me with it? Right? So that's where the whole psychology thing comes in pro wrestling. Psychology begins in the promo. And the promo is where psychology begins. The promo is where you pretty much talk butts into the seats. That's where you make them care enough to buy a ticket. The promo is where you're saying things that are believable, where you go, oh, wow, I can get behind this guy. Or you can say, oh, I really don't like this guy. Or you can just say, you know what, I don't care at all. There are some things that I see on television that I just fast forward to, but I like the promos because they advance the story. I always might watch wrestling on fast forward. I'm like, oh, that's a match I like. Or I'm like, oh, it's a backstage segment where two people are talking in the back. I want to see what the talking is because the talking advances the storyline. The psychology of a match when it comes to pro wrestling involving the heel and face, and it's like this in usually every story. When I teach pro wrestling psychology to newer wrestling students, I use one movie and one movie only. I use The Lion King. Just listen to me. Listen to me. Anybody that's ever learned psychology from me and know that I've used The Lion King as a example to explain psychology, you're going to be able to get it once I explain it to you right now watching me who's never wrestled. Or you might be a wrestler and you don't know psychology. There's 4 parts of a match: the shine, the heat, the comeback, and the finish. In The Lion King, the shine is where everybody's singing, everybody's having a great time. Oh, look, Simba's born. Rafiki brings him up to the top of the rock and holds him up, and everybody's so great. And then we have, Mufasa showing Simba everything and said, everything that touches the light is yours. But Dad, what's over there at the light? Nah, bro, you don't go over there. Okay, so that's pretty much the shine, them establishing who is the baby face. They also establish the heel in that part as well, too, when you see Scar. Scar is angry for whatever reason that it may be. So then all of a sudden, the heat starts when Mufasa dies at the hands of his brother Scar. So now Scar is now the champion. He's on top, which is just like in a pro wrestling match. You see the good guy come in. Why am I hearing myself? Oh, there we go. I was hearing myself somewhere. Wow, my voice is everywhere. So now it's just like in a pro wrestling match. Scar is now on top. The heel is now on top, beating up that babyface, and that babyface now is Simba. And now Simba is getting beat up. He decides that he's going to leave. He's going to run away, and now he's low. So now he makes a couple comebacks, right? Because remember what I said, you want to have somebody that you can see yourself behind. You just don't want to punk the whole entire time. So now Simba meets Timon and Pumbaa. Oh no, looks like he's coming back up, but then he loses himself again. And all that's happening, Scar is running amok in Pride Rock and letting everybody know that, you know what, he's the king and that's the way it is. Don't bring up Mufasa's name. I only know the movie again because I watched it with my son the other day. Actually, he left me watching it. He went to sleep. Then eventually Simba meets Nala. He meets Nala again. Now they're now grown up. They run and they frolic. Now that's another comeback, and then he's down again. And then eventually him and Nala. Now eventually everything is just flat, right? Everything is just flat. Everybody's back, at level playing fields. But now Simba needs to go back and test what he's got against his uncle. So now they formulate a plan. They come back into Plymouth Rock, and then they start fighting. They start making the comeback, right? Scar is getting just as much hits in as Simba's getting as much hits in. And then all of a sudden, we go into the finish where Simba does the last final moves, and then he's on top. We're celebrating, everything is happy. We can go into the Lion King 2 and everything else like that. That's a wrestling match. That's in every single story that you've probably ever read in your life, where the good guy the hero has some kind of story and he has something that's bothering him or her, and then they overcome it, and at the end they stand high and go, oh my God, I know how you ever overcome that. Iconic heels and faces like Ric Flair and and The Rock. Ric Flair was an egotistical and conceited wrestler who had all the money, all the girls, and all the perks of life because he was a top wrestler. He said he was a kiss-stealing, when he said he was a jet plane flying, kiss-stealing, wheeling-dealing son of a gun, woo! And then you would also have The Rock, right? We're talking about heels real quick. The Rock was arrogant, he was cocky, he would belittle people from his opponents to the backstage interviewers. Legendary babyfaces like Hulk Hogan and John Cena. Hogan was a babyface for a very long time. He was a movie star and he helped usher in the pro wrestling age. What made pro wrestling popular in the 80s. He was what you would call a white meat babyface because he was telling all the kids that they need to say their prayers and eat their vitamins, right? Like how could a parent not tell their kid to love that guy? He wants them to not only pray, but he needs to but the kids need to also eat their vitamins as well too. He was a role model. You got somebody like John Cena. John Cena was a top babyface like Hogan. And John Cena wasn't really liked by all the fans. Cena was a huge role model for the pro wrestlers and the fans alike. He built his career, he being John Cena, he built his career on three things: hustle, loyalty, and respect. How can you not get behind a guy like that who tells you that you need to work hard, right? You need to be loyal to the people that you're loyal to, and you need to respect people. Like, kids, go like them. But then you got the guys on the other side who are cocky, who are arrogant. Like, no, don't be like them. Be like Hogan and be like John Cena. You hated The Rock and Ric Flair. Those were guys who got everything in life, and those were people that bragged about it. For example, Flair got all the women, and one said in a promo, "Ladies, you don't have to go to Space Mountain." No, I'm sorry, I messed it up. He said, "Ladies, you don't have to go to Disney World to ride Space Mountain." Like he was referring to himself as Space Mountain. And it's like, if you're a guy and you're there and your girlfriend is like, "Oh my God, I love Ric Flair." You're like, "Baby, but I got Space Mountain too." But you're not Ric Flair. The Rock would be a jerk. The Rock would be talking to people and he would say, "Hey, what? I don't know who you are." And the person goes, "Well, my name is," and The Rock will go, "It doesn't matter what your name is." It's like, you're such a jerk. You just interrupted the guy. You asked me what my name is, and then you tell me it doesn't matter what my name is. Why'd you ask? But even though we hated those guys, we always loved them at the same time. But put them against your favorite wrestler, against your favorite babyface, and we definitely knew who we should cheer for. Hogan was popular because he looked like an action figure in the 80s. He looked like a G.I. Joe. He had abs. He was big and strong. He had 24-inch pythons. He was talking about his bis and tris, his arms. And he could rip his shirt off and he could defeat all of the biggest foes like Andre the Giant. John Cena was relatable because he was the foundation for people that they can hang their hats on. He was also put into some difficult situations and he would always overcome them. We actually talked about John Cena last episode. John Cena's getting ready to retire. So once you're done with that here, go ahead and go look at that one. I think that one is good too. So, famous heel and face turns. Hogan was a babyface for maybe, from the 80s, he was probably a babyface for maybe 11 years, right? From maybe 84 to 96, 95 or something like that. Hogan was a movie star, not as good as The Rock and John Cena, respectfully, but he was a household name. When the NWO launched in WCW, they were looking for a third man, and that third man happened to be Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan turned heel, even though everybody thought it wouldn't work. But Hogan turned heel. He turned into the bad guy, and everybody hated Hogan. Hogan started wearing all black. He started calling himself Hollywood Hogan. He went from having a all blonde, Fu Manchu, to having a dark beard underneath the blonde beard. Still wore the do-rag, still called everybody brother and stuff like that. And that was Hogan. The day that Hogan turned heel, they threw garbage into the ring. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin made a huge heel turn at WrestleMania 17. Probably one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. Right? There's a list of the greatest WrestleManias of all time, and that's one of them. And that's when Stone Cold Steve Austin turned heel. Stone Cold Steve Austin was in the main event against The Rock for the WWFE Championship. And Vince McMahon, who was Stone Cold Steve Austin's arch nemesis for the past 6 years, came out and helped helped Stone Cold Steve Austin win the match, and they drank beers together. Stone Cold Steve Austin's thing was drinking beers, and he always drank beers and clashed them together, and he'd always cover Vince McMahon in beers. But now the two were drinking beers together. Oh man, I think it was terrible at the time because Austin turned his back on everybody. How could you align with the person that you hate so much? You turned he turned his back on everything that he and the fans believed in just so that he can get what he wanted. That's heelish. That's heelish. But if you ask me, I don't think that Austin ever recovered from being a heel because he got injured through then his career didn't last much longer after 2001. NWO that Hogan was in, NWO turned out to be cool, right? It turned out to be cool because they said once you were NWO, you're NWO for life. And one person I can still think of right now that's NWO is Dennis Rodman. Nobody's ever kicked him out of the NWO. He's in the NWO. So when you see Dennis Rodman, you make sure you give the NWO too sweet. Okay. Promos are very crucial for baby faces, for pro wrestlers, for heels, because promos let you know the conviction and let you know why the wrestlers believe in what they believe. Promos make you care enough to where you want to buy a ticket to where you want to see the story progress. It's a promo. Some key details to make a promo good is that you should always know the name of the person in the promo. Okay. Even on WWE, when you're watching somebody give a promo, they might put the person's name on the television. They might not say their name. They might not say, "I am Tristen Law and I'm here to fight." He might just say, "I'm here to fight," and they put his name on the bottom of the television in the lower third, so you know exactly who he or she is. The promo should be captivating. You should care. Sometimes I see promos, I'm like, oh wow, what am I really watching? Why do I care? A promo should invoke some kind of emotional response in you, and that's where the care or not care. And definitely at the end of the promo, you should decide whether you want to hate that person or love that person. If the babyface is making a promo, they should never make promises that they can't keep, right? Because then you become a liar. And who lies? The babyface. As a heel, though, on the other hand, you definitely make promises that you can't keep. Oh, when I come into town this weekend, I'm going to beat you for that belt. I'm going to end your career. No, but I end up losing. But you know what? Nobody cares either way because I was the heel. But if I come in and I say as the babyface, I'm going to come in and I'm going to retain my championship and I'm going to party with all the fans, and then you don't retain your championship, you lose, and you don't get to party with all the fans. It's like, oh, well, you're a loser, right? You're a loser. Oh, one thing that I always learned when you did promos as well too, is you would never call anybody a loser, right? Because if you get beat, you got beat by a loser. Or if you beat somebody up, you beat up a loser, right? You don't beat anybody if you don't make anybody. So you got to make somebody. You got to make people care about them, make that person look great in the pro wrestling ring. Wrestlers that are renowned for their promo skills, definitely hands down, The Rock. The Rock was a perfect promo, good in the ring, because you never knew what he was going to say on television. Stone Cold Steve Austin was known for his promos as well too, because you would go to work all day or you go to school all day long and have somebody tell you what you are and what you're not going to do, but then you would come home and you would see Stone Cold Steve Austin get told by his boss this is what he was going to do, and Stone Cold would fight the boss, right? Stone Cold was fighting for us. Ric Flair was outlandish in his promos, either heel or babyface, and he was always confident. There's another wrestler nowadays who is renowned for his promos, MJF. He wrestles for AEW. He is like many of the greats, you don't know what he is going to say, but you can guarantee it's going to be outside of the box of what everybody else normally says. He cusses on television sometimes. He tells people that they suck. He has jokes with innuendo in them. It's like talking to a frat guy or something like that. the way that wrestling has evolved with civilization. It's not the 70s when everybody thought that wrestling was legit. Wrestlers are now on social media. Wrestlers are now in the public, right? It's not hard for you to see what a pro wrestler's doing. Just type in your favorite pro wrestler's name and go find them somewhere on social media. But compared to the 80s, wrestlers would have this persona that they had on TV, and because you couldn't really see them outside of TV, they can keep up that persona. But in real life, you see this guy here is a womanizer and everything else like that. But when you look at his personal life, you go, wait, you just got married last week. So like right now in WWE, Rey Mysterio's son is wrestling, and he's feuding, because one lady wants him and another lady wants him, but it's not really a relationship, but it kind of is a relationship. But in real life, Dominic Mysterio's married. But you have to understand that he's just playing a character on the television. And that's why I think that pro wrestling is good, because it allows you to suspend disbelief of who these people really are. And that's when pro wrestling is good. When you suspend disbelief, and even though you know in the back of your mind what's really going on in the real world, but you be able to take your entertainment as how it's being fed to you. If you're looking for examples of pro wrestlers who are navigating the real life versus the non-real life scenario, you look at people like Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns. So when you watch pro wrestling, you think, is Becky Lynch a face? Is Becky Lynch a heel? Is Roman Reigns a face or Roman Reigns a heel? The only difference between Becky Lynch now as a babyface versus Becky Lynch then as a heel is pretty much who she wrestles. And it's the same exact thing with Stone Cold Steve Austin. When Stone Cold Steve Austin first started wrestling as Stone Cold, he was a bad guy. Surprise, he was a bad guy. And then eventually they just changed who he was wrestling. He started wrestling bad guys, and then he became the good guy. So that's the only difference usually between heel and face. And those kind of characters kind of just like blur the lines. Their promos are still the same. Their ring gear still might be the same. They might sell one or two more t-shirts now. But fan reactions, it definitely shapes the way between the success of heels and faces. Fans are always listening. They're in tuned to when pro wrestlers are talking, and something that they say could become really catchy. For example, there's a term right now in pro wrestling called yeet, and people go like this when you say yeet, right? And yeet, something I always heard all the young kids say. Yeet means like throw. Hey, he yeeted him right outside the ring, right? So yeet became a thing that they started saying in pro wrestling because of Jey Uso. Now there's shirts that say yeet on it. Or when The Rock would come into town saying something catchy, The Rock would go, finally, The Rock has come back to insert town here. But when The Rock became a heel, The Rock would say it, and then the fans would start saying it with The Rock, and The Rock would stop and say, this is not sing along with The Rock. Like, damn, Rock, you can't let him live, bro. You can't let him live. But that's when you look at the dynamic between heels, when heels started becoming really cool. Cool heels are common things. Roman Reigns was the heel the last time we saw him, but now everybody's cheering. We want Roman. Damian Priest right now is one of the WWE champions, and he's a heel, and everybody loves him, right? MJF is a heel. MJF will tell them from AEW, he will tell them all kinds of things about their mothers and what should happen to their girlfriends and everything else like that. And they go, oh my God, MJF, we still love you. We still love you. Like, MJF is probably the only true heel right now in pro wrestling. Cool heels are hated, but they're definitely loved by the fans. Definitely. Cool heels, they get to blur the line so much that a person that doesn't even know the story will look at them and go, I hate them, while everybody else that is familiar with the story go, no, you have to like him. You have to like him. And that's sometimes what happens. You're sitting here and the heel is just so cool because you're so in tune with that person's backstory that you are on the bandwagon with that person. Why are people in the bandwagon with MJF? I don't know. Maybe people just like to get told off. I really don't know. Look at it like this, right? The Joker. And I always use the Joker as something to explain storytelling to people. The movie, we are traditionally known that the Joker is the arch nemesis. He's the heel in the story where Batman is the babyface, the face, right? the movie The Joker came out a couple years ago, and they're getting ready to release part 2 with Lady Gaga in it. I'm watching that. Yes, I can't wait. You saw Joker in a different light. You saw him as, yeah, he was the villain, but society failed him. Was everything that he was seeing or that we saw a hallucination? We don't really know. But in the movie, you see a young Batman. And Batman is the heel in the movie. Batman's whole family is the heel in the same time while Joker's the babyface. That's when I stopped for a second and I said, you know what? Storytelling is for you to figure out who the good guy or the bad guy is. It all depends on who is telling the story. When Batman is telling the story, Joker's the heel. When Joker's telling the story, right? The Joker's the babyface and Batman is the heel. It all depends on who is telling the story. When you look at the Bible, right? And don't strike me down, God. I'm just making an example, right? When God's telling the story, everybody in there that he talks about is the babyface. But if you look at all the other people, let's look back at the Lion King. Is Scar really the babyface? I mean, you don't know. What if Mufasa treated him bad for so long? What if Mufasa, screwed him out of becoming the king when he was supposed to be the king and Mufasa took it? And this was Scar's revenge to go ahead and get back the kingship. But no, we saw that he took it from Simba and he wanted to take it from Simba because Simba was next in line. I don't know. You don't know. It's all who is telling the story. Heel versus faces are very important when it comes to pro wrestling. It gives everybody a team to cheer and boo for. It's all about invoking emotions from the viewers. And like I said, the heel versus babyface dynamic, it all depends on who is telling the story. Next episode, I'm going to talk about becoming a pro wrestler. I'm going to talk about how you can possibly become a pro wrestler as well, too. I think it's going to be something cool for us all to sit here and talk about. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. I always said that I never want to be that person that's asking you to subscribe, but go ahead and subscribe. Not everything's going to be a home run, but everything, we're going to hit it still within the park. And some things will hit, some things won't hit. But I want you to subscribe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can find out when I'm coming out. And I think the next episode is going to be Friday at noon. Yeah, Friday at noon. I'll see you there if you're not doing anything. I'm Tristen Law, and this is the Tristen Law Show. And thanks for hanging out. See you next time.
'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die.